Hello and welcome everyone to this video. This is my prediction for 2020 League of Legends Worlds Finals. Who is gonna make it into the finals in my opinion, and who is gonna take the win in the end. I know it's pretty early to do a video like that because we don't even know who's gonna make it into the finals, but I had a lot of research done up until that point, because if you don't know, I want to make it as a League of Legends team coach. My name is Shepherd's Eagle, and I'm gonna let you know with what basically I found out in the last couple of games, the research I've done concerning all our teams at Worlds. And yeah, without further ado, let's jump into it. The first thing I want to talk about are the standings pretty shortly. Basically, I want to just run you through what happened, what I expected. Of course, it's like I didn't say it before, but just to let you know, and which went the other way. So Top Esports versus Fnatic, I was pretty much on the same side like the casters and the analysts in the first place. Like I expected a 3-0 or maybe a 3-1 versus Fnatic, so Top Esports would take that series easily. It surprised me a little bit what Fnatic pulled off there, but in the end Top Esports proved everyone right that they are definitely the favorites in this matchup. Suning versus JDG, I was a little bit like, I was not sure about JDG at all, because their performances were very up and down up until the quarters, and they had some crazy returns in the games before that they played on the way to quarters, so I was a little bit like, yeah, wanky in my prediction there. So Suning was like okay for me. Like they played better and that's it. Like I didn't have a clear prediction for this series. G2 versus Gen G, I was pretty sure that G2 would take it, and you're gonna see why in my further explanation for finals. DRX versus Damwon, same story. Damwon convinced me from the start when they entered Worlds, because they had really strong progression and developed a lot of skill throughout the Worlds tournament, so that was pretty clear for me. I predicted a 3-1, it was a 3-0, so fine. Basically Suning versus Top Esports and Damwon Gaming versus G2. I'm just talk about Damwon Gaming versus G2 because I've not done enough research to make a good point about how to predict basically Suning versus Top Esports. So I'm gonna focus on Damwon Gaming versus G2 Esports in this video. And basically if you would have to nail me down on one of those, like Suning or Top Esports, I would definitely give it to Top Esports at the moment. But as I said, I don't want to make a point there yet. So I have a little cold, sorry. I think it's not gonna matter too much, but just so you know that it's not my normal voice at the moment. The next thing I want to talk about are the rosters of Damwon Gaming and G2 Esports. I think both Damwon and G2 are the clear favorites at Worlds 2020. It's too bad that actually they play each other in the semi-finals already. I would really have loved to see the final being Damwon versus G2, because I think it's the most exciting game at Worlds 2020 in a whole. But yeah, maybe G2 versus Top Esports or Damwon versus Top Esports would be great too. But like Suning, I'm not pretty sure about that team yet. But let's see, maybe they convinced me. So G2, the roster you have to pay a little bit attention to. They haven't changed it in the last 2 years. Like 2018 Caps and Mickey X joined, and since then the roster basically remained the same. They subbed in Pinoy for some games to have him as a backup for Perks, because Perks needed a break in between, not at Worlds but before. So basically what you have to keep in mind, this roster has some experience. Like this is nothing you can just oversee and go for like, yeah, okay, but the other players are good too. Of course, like there are players at Worlds I would call right now that that are mechanically and like skill-wise better than some players of G2. Like I would really underline that. But it's not the thing that's most outstanding in a tournament like this. In a tournament like this, you basically have two other things that are much more important. First thing, are the players experienced as a team? because that's a team game that we are playing and not a single player game or something. So basically G2 have a lot of experience there, and the second thing is, do they withstand that pressure, being in the final, being up there at the top, with everyone looking at them, judging them, and like the enemies preparing for them so well? Do they withstand that pressure? And G2 as a team have enough experience for the time being, I think, to actually have the potential to do that. On the other hand, Damwon Gaming, the cool thing about Damwon is like Eastern teams tend to really swap a lot of players if they don't fit very, very fast. But like Western teams do that kind of stuff too until they at some point figure their team out. But it's just a feeling, like from observation wise, that Eastern teams are a bit quicker with that decision to swap a player out, which doesn't have to be a bad thing actually, but I just want to mention it. But which is cool at the moment, the roster of Damwon Gaming is pretty experienced too. I have to say, Ghost is the only player I'm not sure yet how he will perform in the World Finals. Because of course he's very young. He's not the experienced player, I would say. Like, he had a lot of different teams. Of course he could gather a lot of experience in the other teams, but he has not been on one team for a very long time. Like, the only thing he had was CG Enters for 1 year. Or basically, yeah, a little more than 1.5 years he had there. So, but except Ghost, I think it's a pretty cool thing that G2 as well as Damwon Gaming have both have a roster that is pretty experienced in playing with each other, and you see that in the gameplay, because first, their mental edge as a team is very high. Like, they can take a lot of pressure, they can withstand that. And Damwon Gaming have that too. Like, they can withstand a lot of pressure, and they have really, really good synergy as a team, because they know each other very well as concerning to the players, so they can pull that off under a lot of pressure. Which, if you would, for example, have a really young roster which is not that experienced, or maybe not playing together for that long, they would struggle with this, because they would not know each other very well. And if, for example, you have a roster that's like playing for half a year in this kind of form, like with those players, and you would go under a lot of pressure, like a tournament in the finals or something, which is pretty important for everyone and the organization itself, they would struggle in very simple regards, like in the communication, because they would not know how to really good communicate with each other under pressure. And all that stuff, the mental edge would be shaky, the emotional fortitude especially would crack easily. I made a video on emotional fortitude and mental edge before this one here, you can check it out if you want. But yeah, so back to G2 and Damwon. The next thing I figured was, okay, let's check out the meta, and as we know, the analyst desk talks about this a lot at the moment at Worlds. We have a pretty jungle and support focused meta. Like, these two roles have a lot of impact at the current meta. First, the jungle has one advantage, like which you didn't have in the jungle the last meta. Well, it's basically, if you get ahead, you stay ahead in the jungle. Of course, you can catch up at some points on some way, but like, there's no catch-up experience on jungle monsters, I think, anymore. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, please. I'm not perfect by any means. As I said, I'm on my way to becoming a League of Legends team coach. I have to work hard for that, but I'm trying my best to just give you the most important information here, and of course the right information. So jungle is pretty important. Support has a lot of agency to roam around the map at the moment, because the solo laners depend on backup, like they did in every meta before, but in this meta you have some supports and some items especially that really enable roaming supports. And the meta supports are also pretty good for roaming at the moment. So basically support and jungle are very important in this tournament at Worlds. What I did now is I put sorry, I looked for a couple of statistics. You don't have to understand this whole thing here, of course. If you don't want to, you can if you want, but I'm gonna explain it a little bit easier for you. So what I picked out here was Jankos, Mickey X, Canyon and Beryl. If you don't know it, Jankos and Mickey are jungle and support for G2, and Canyon and Beryl are jungle and support for Damwon. So what I found pretty interesting is, if you look at Jankos champions, he very much adapts to his team most of the time. Like, a lot of junglers do that, which is the right thing to do, but he basically adapts a lot. You could argue now, but hey, he picked Graves. Isn't that a high priority or something? Yeah, but basically it's just to show jungle domination, because Graves is a really safe pick at the moment. It's not something Jankos, like in his streams he talks about this a little bit, it's not something he really prefers to play. It's just something that is good for his team. The Nidalee, same thing, like, it's just for being ahead in the jungle. This is the same thing as the Graves. Zed, for example, is a really good pick into special team compositions where you can utilize his ability to really bring a heavy engage tool. He also played the Shen in the jungle, which is pretty interesting. He only pulled that off, I think, once in the tournament, and it wasn't even at Worlds yet, but it was in LEC. So I think Jankos, you can count him in as a very supportive jungler. Like, he's always looking for what can I do better for my team, which is a pretty good thing if you really want to enable strong players in your team. But it's not a good thing, and this is something you really have to look out for, since we're going to talk about Canyon later on. It's not a good thing if you really want to carry a game as a jungler. This is something Jankos won't be able to do at Worlds, and I want you to remember that when we go into Damwon gaming. It's a lot of information, I apologize, but to make a prediction for Worlds Finals 2020 at the point that we are right now requires a lot of research and a lot of information, so I hope you stay with me here. So Jankos, to make it short, is a very supportive jungler, and Mickey X, of course, he is the support player and very supportive for his team too. But for Mickey X, I have to really put emphasis on this because it's very important. He has a variety of champions that he can pull off, actually. And I'm not talking about like that he can play and that he's able to play, or what's his champion pool or something like that. That doesn't matter at the moment, because you still got bans and you can target the player if he's really good on some champions. The thing I want to talk about, Mickey X is a strong player when it comes to performing in, I would say, complicated situations, because he has a very good analytical thinking of situation in games. Sorry. And basically the Pantheon support, for example, is something I want to talk about, because at the analyst desk it was mentioned too that there would be only one real Pantheon support at Wolves that was really performing great. And sadly I forgot the name of the player. It was a Korean player. But just look at the game where Mickey X played Pantheon last time at Worlds. It was versus Gen G, and it was a really stunning performance. And he just pulled that pick off so well. Like, really, chapeau, Mickey X. This was really good performance on the Pantheon support, because Pantheon, he has a very small window which he really has to time well to get enabled in the game and to really like make this pick work. It's not like a Tahm Kench or a Rakan or a Zed or any other support, or Thresh, Braum, Lulu, Nautilus, whatever you want. It's really a pick that has several conditions that have to be matched perfectly so the pick works on bot lane. So Mickey X, he has a variety of champions that he can play, and if he plays them, he's basically, in most cases, able to pull that off. So Mickey X, very, very consistent player, and I really count on him to carry some of the upcoming games for G2. So keep those two players in mind. Jankos, very supportive jungler, not really in the position to carry his team, but to really support his team and enable other strong players, like for example Caps, or Perks, or Wunder. Like G2 have a lot of strong players who can carry games, like I said, like Caps is the best example, and Jankos doesn't have to do that. So it's okay for him to be a supportive jungler. And like, he doesn't have the greatest of all KDAs. He has good KDAs, but there are better KDAs. But he always delivers. If he can, basically. If he doesn't fall behind. Like, he had one Nidalee game at Worlds. It was very, very early. I don't remember exactly against who it was. Was it versus Suning? Actually, no. Or was it? I think... No, exactly, it was versus Team Liquid. They lost that game. He got set so far behind by Broxah in this game that he just was not able to have any further impact with Nidalee in this game. And this is basically a good explanation of how the jungle meta works at the moment, because if you fall behind, you basically, if you don't really pull something crazy off, you stay behind. And Graves is great at farming up, at staying ahead, and Nidalee too, but both are at risk of falling behind. Like, if they fall behind, they are basically useless in the game. And you should have, if you have not seen that game, if you have ever seen a useless Nidalee in a game, that game was it, basically. Like G2 versus Team Liquid, Jankos didn't have any agency of impacting that game at any point. So I don't want to dive into this too deep, because we have other things to talk about, so let's move on to Canyon and Beryl. Canyon has been outstanding at Worlds, definitely. The casters and the analysts talked about that a lot, like how crazy of a performance Canyon pulled off at Worlds. And this doesn't have to be questioned at any point. Like, the win ratio of Canyon, of his team, of course, speaks for itself. But if you just take a look at the KDA of Canyon, like, he is a real carry threat. Like, this guy is not a supportive jungler at all. He can do that, of course. Like, it's not like he doesn't want to support his team or anything, not at all. But he's really taking kills at a lot of points. Like, in some of his games, his assists are higher than his kill ratios, but mostly his kill ratios are higher than his assist ratios. But okay, not always, I see. In ACK, well, but it was. Whatever. It doesn't matter too much. He's a very aggressive jungler if you watch his playstyle a little bit. And I think this guy is able to carry Damwon. So this is pretty dangerous for G2. Like, if Canyon is able to take out Jankos, out of the game, basically, which happened to Jankos before, like against Team Liquid, Broxah did that, show pretty well that it's possible to completely take Jankos out of the game. I think G2 will struggle there. This is like a weak point for G2. But I think for G2, they don't have too many weak points, so I think this is something they can work with, basically. But Damwon really has to target, they have to really target Jankos if they want to enable Canyon and the whole team, basically, because this guy carries Damwon throughout every single game. They can totally rely on him, and he showed a monster performance on his Graves pick. You can watch the games. I can really recommend watching Canyon a little closer. You can take a lot of stuff away from this guy. Like, he shows monster performances. Next thing, Beryl. Beryl, as a support, he has a good history of playing Leona. I looked that up before. Like, with Leona, he pulls off a lot of wins. So I think this is a target ban clearly for Worlds. I expect to see that for Beryl. But as you can see, Beryl has the exact same thing that I talked about when we were talking about Mickey. Like, he is able to pull off a lot of different picks, even though he doesn't have the, I would say, highest variety in draft. Just in draft. Like, I mean, not his champion pool, just what he goes for. Like, he has his comfort picks. And he's able to pull off the Pantheon too, so I expect that to be contested in the draft from G2 as well as Damwon Gaming. Like that, I think G2 will not have such a high priority on the Pantheon pick, but I think Damwon Gaming are gonna contest it, definitely. The Bard is something Mickey plays as well. The Lux support is an interesting thing. I don't know yet if we are gonna see it at Worlds in the series, sorry, from Damwon versus G2. But he pulled off the Karma, he pulled off the Sejuani, he pulled off the Poppy. He has a lot of stuff going on that bot lane, and he's able to really perform well on a variety of champions. So Beryl as a support, I think, is gonna match Mickey pretty well. I don't see any point where either of those supports, like Mickey X or Beryl, is really above the other one. I don't see that point at all. Like, they are pretty evenly matched. So I think in this regard, the bot lane, just talking about the supports now, is relying on the team, because they are so, from a skill perspective, they are so evenly matched basically, that it would be a real back and forth. Like, if one gets an advantage, the other one is get an advantage back and forth, back and forth. That's something I expect from the bot lane from Damwon versus G2. Basically, because Perks and Mickey, they function very, very well, have a good synergy. I think they lost a little bit of their synergy throughout the last year. Like, in 2019, what they pulled off there was crazy. Like, some of the Gragas Yasuo action they did bot lane was insane. And I think they lost a little bit of that synergy, which is a pretty sad thing to observe for me, because I loved how they synergized, because I've never seen such synergy at any point in the LEC. But maybe at the moment, because the last game from G2 was pretty convincing, and I have hope that Mickey X and Perks found some of their synergy back. As you can see, I'm a G2 fanboy, of course, but I just want to be as objective as possible in this video. So Damwon Gaming, G2, basically evenly matched bot lane, in my opinion, in my point of view. The jungle matchup completely different. Like, Canyon is a really, really carry heavy jungler, and Jankos is a completely supportive jungler who just wants to enable his team and his players. We're gonna see how they are gonna play that out later. But I think, before we come to the last point, I think that G2 have the edge here. A little, by a really, really small, yeah, like inch. They don't show, they really don't show in team performance or even in macro performance anything that I would consider being a real strength or a real weakness, either of those, against Damwon Gaming. And on the other hand, Damwon, same thing. I don't consider anything they do as a real weakness against G2 or a strength. It's either way. So we come to the difference maker now, and this is really just one guy. It's Caps, basically. Like, we've seen his performances, and he has pulled off monster performances. Like, at this Worlds tournament, I've never seen that Caps before. And I think what really made it for him was swapping into the ADC position for quite a while. Because if you have not recognized that, Caps swapped over with Perks, I think it was in Spring Split, to the ADC position, and swapped back in Summer Split to the mid position. And Perks went back to bot lane. So what Caps learned there, because before, like last year, he was known as a very explosive player who just goes all the way in and does crazy outplays, and if it goes wrong, he basically ends, and that's about it. And I think that Caps was playing on bot lane made his playing style and his thinking about the macro level, especially the macro level, a lot more cleaner and also a little bit more reserved, so he could really like focus on pulling off a perfect play in mid lane right now. Because he was a good ADC, but not the greatest. Perks is definitely a better ADC than Caps is, in my opinion. But Caps, dude, this man, he took off at Worlds. And I think that this is really the difference maker, and this is why that Jankos, or basically, just let me finish this point, I think this is why Caps has a clear advantage above Canyon. Because Jankos doesn't want to carry. We made that point clear. We see it in the match history. We see his performances in the KDA a little bit. Like, he has a lot of assists in every game. Some kills, of course, but way more assists than Canyon does have. So Canyon wants to enable his mid laner too, of course, but his mid laner is not getting more resources than Canyon. On the other hand, Caps is getting a lot more resources than Jankos. So you really have to keep that in mind. And this, now to come to the final point, the skill matchup in mid lane between Caps and Showmaker. Sorry. The matchup between Caps and Showmaker, I clearly favor Caps there. Like, I've never seen a performance from a mid laner like Caps since season 5, like since I started playing and watching the game and studying the game basically. So I give it over to Caps, and as a whole team I give it over to G2, because Jankos can enable Caps a lot easier than Canyon can enable Showmaker. Because of the resources basically. And Mickey X can play around Caps too, of course, so I think playing around Canyon against G2 would be a mistake for Damwon Gaming. But I think they're gonna do it. This is just an assumption, like it could be completely the other way around, but my assumption is that they are gonna try to play around Canyon in this game again, and that Canyon is gonna try to carry, because it worked for them pretty well in the series as before. So at this point I have to give it over to G2 to get back to the standings. Like, I think G2 Esports, if I would have to make a clear number now, I would predict a 3-2 for G2. I think Damwon got figured out G2's playstyle pretty well too. Like, they worked pretty well against the other teams in the Worlds tournament up until that point, so they always showed good preparation. I think that's gonna come into this series against G2 too. But I think, as I said, G2 are gonna prepare very well, of course, too, and I think the edge is over to G2. I want to give you a little biscuit here, like a cookie. Worlds 2019. We all know that FPX took off there. They really stomped G2. There is no other way to say it. And I want you to look at the predictions from the casters and the analysts. Like, everyone was predicting a clear G2 win. Justificio was a little bit, maybe FPX is gonna take at least 2 games off of them, but G2 is gonna win. And last year, in some interviews, I think Grabs also, like the coach from G2, talked about the players, like 2019 finals, being really burnt out, and they spent so much energy on the way to the finals that they didn't have a lot of energy left being in the finals, and that this is a reason why they lost so hard at Worlds 2019. And I think studying the games a little bit and the players, how they performed 2019 at Worlds, it underlines a little bit that they really were losing their energy coming to the end of the tournament. So I think this is a pretty good point. And to really get back to this one here and to combine that, this year everyone is favoring Damwon. Like they are very, very scary, of course, but this goes back a little bit more to the kind of play style. Like the Damwon have a very logical gameplay, which is very, very how do you say that in English? Which is something where it's really, really hard to find any mistakes you can punish. Basically, that's about it with Damwon. And G2 are like the team that's very, very explosive, and they come out of nowhere and they just take you out of the field, and you are like, what happened? What we were planning with something completely different, and G2 just surprised them. So that's a little bit the playstyle of both teams, and I think you have to consider, if you look at this, that you will never know how good a team is prepared in the end. You will just see it in the games. But Grabs, he really made it clear that this year they are gonna really be patient with the resources of their players, like the energy level, the consistency. So they held the ball down basically until now, and you see that in their games. Like they had games they were just like basically chilling. They had some game, I think it was it was also the game against Team Liquid, where they were doing things I've never expected from them doing at Worlds, especially at Worlds. They made mistakes all over the place, and now they seem even stronger. Like now, out of nowhere, they are like on the top of the bracket. They are really, really pulling it off every game we see now, especially against against Gen.G. They had such a high level performance, which no one was basically expecting from them, and their analyst really, really did a great job. Like Duffman, absolute respect for early game plays that he pulled off for this team. I think Mickey X tweeted about it too. But yeah, I think we can expect something. If we go into the G2 Damwon series, we can expect something like this just being Damwon. Like I think the casters and analysts are gonna give it over to Damwon. I'm not gonna give it over to Damwon. I'm definitely gonna give the edge over to G2 for the reasons I just explained. Even though the odds are a little bit against G2, but 2019 the odds were against FPX. Doesn't matter, we're gonna see anyways. So this was my prediction for Damwon versus G2, because it's a lot more important to talk about this year before we come to the final. For the final, I expect G2 to be in the final and Top Esports to be in the final. As I said, I'm not gonna talk about this matchup here, Suning versus Top Esports, too much, because I have not done enough research. If you want me to do another video for Suning versus Top Esports, please post in comments below, then I can do it if there's enough request for it. And now to talk about the finals. I want to point out Caps here. I think Caps is gonna carry the finals, and he's gonna carry G2 to victory. Why? Because you can see his KDA. KDAs speak a lot. Like you can take away a lot from KDAs. And from his item build, you see how confident this man is at Worlds. He's buying Soul Stealer, Magi Soul Stealer, and getting it all the way up to 25 stacks. And the further they get into the tournament, the more he buys it. Like in the last 2 games versus Gen.G, he had Soul Stealer both times. And I think he got it stacked completely in the last game? I don't know, but in this game, definitely. I mean, he was 11-0-11. Which mid laner has such stats at such a high value tournament? Like 11-0-11. You have to really get that down your throat. So I think this man is gonna carry G2. Sorry. And It doesn't matter if Top Esports or Suning win this matchup here and get into the finals. I think G2 is gonna make it, and that Caps is definitely in the finals as well as the semi-finals is gonna give G2 the edge to make it. So my prediction for Worlds 2020 is that G2 wins. If it would be against Top Esports, I would probably give it a 3-2, maybe a 3, maybe a 3-1 for G2. If it was against Suning, for the point that I know, or better to say, for the information that I have from Suning or about Suning at the moment at Worlds, I would give it a 3-0 for G2. That's it about my Worlds prediction for the semi and the finals for Worlds 2020, and I hope you liked what I told you. The information was a lot. I apologize if it was a bit too long, but it would be rather dumb to make any prediction without the right information, so I hope you understand that. If you like this video, if you like what I do, if you like me, if you want to support me at any point, please subscribe, hit that like button, share this content that I produce, because I really need your backup to make it. As a League of Legends team coach, it's a lofty goal, a long way to go, and yeah. If you have any wishes, any questions, I'm gonna answer every question in the comment. Doesn't matter if it's what I like to eat or what I play, which elo I am. I'm Silver 2 basically. Still climbing, so don't worry, it's not something that is gonna stay forever. Yeah. Thank you for watching. Have a great day, have a great evening, enjoy playing the game, enjoy Worlds, and it's really gonna be an interesting series, and I'm really stoked to see who's gonna make the finals. See you guys, take care, love and respect for you. Bye bye.